Welcome back to Dell World Live. I'm Bob O'Donnell, President and Chief Analyst at Technalysis Research. And this next segment, as I mentioned just before, is robotic process automation, getting ready for the next revolution in business. And joining me is Tanvir Khan. Tanvir and I had a chance to chat yesterday on a separate subject. And Tanvir is the Vice President of Business Process Outsourcing Solutions in Dell Services. So welcome back, Tanvir.
Thank you.
So, all right. Robotic process automation. Does that mean we have robots doing? What's the deal? Come on, what is it?
So yes, in the domain of manufacturing, you actually have those physical robots doing things, and in the business process automation world, people started driving a lot of automation, which is removing humans from the actual process.
Right.
And somebody coined the term business or robots, and it's stuck. So it's not necessarily the classic manufacturing robots. They are software robots. You don't see them, you don't feel them, but they get the work done, and they get it done well.
Good for you, that's great. So, I mean, in other words, basically what you're saying is, this is just taking the automation process that a lot of people have been working on sort of to the next degree. Is that a fair?
That's correct,
yeah.
Yes.
So, and how much different is it? Because again, there has been automation of some of these processes. What defines the difference between some automation and then the robotic version of it?
So if you look at the classic automation in the world of IT,
right?
It was that there is a process that is done by a system. It could be trade reconciliation, it could be accounts payables, receivables, you have ERP, and all these systems do stuff.
Got it.
And they do stuff well, but there are exceptions. And those exceptions make transactions fail. And traditionally, business process outsourcing has been all about exception management.
Okay.
So now what's beginning to happen is people are realizing that there are transactions that fail that people do. But what people are also doing is a series of steps driven by business rules.
Okay.
So robotic process automation is really taking the traditionally manual processes and developing a set of rules which can then put them through an automated robotic process. So this is all about automating exceptions that are thrown out by the IT systems.
Fair enough. Now, the concern with robotics, whether it's in manufacturing or in this, is if there's a robot, then I don't need a person, people lose their job. So address that. How should people think about this?
Traditionally, right from the industrial age, robotics has actually been creating a net increase in jobs. Now, what really happens is that the nature of jobs changes.
Fair enough.
So that's going to happen now. If I look at the BPO industry, 20 years ago, 90% of the work done in the BPO industry was digitization and data entry. Nobody does data entry now. You have OCR, a document comes in, gets scanned, and the document is in. Does it mean the BPO industry went away and got reduced by 90%? No, it's actually about 20 times bigger now. It is the nature of jobs that keeps changing, and automation is going to be actually a facilitator in expansion of the industry.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And so, if I'm a customer, a Dell customer, or I'm an enterprise, what are the benefits? I mean, what are the things that it's going to allow me to do that I couldn't necessarily do before when I think about robotic process?
So look at it from 2 points of view. Let's look at it from an enterprise point of view, and then let's look at it from the people point of view.
Okay.
So from the enterprise point of view, the first thing that comes to people's mind is cost.
Sure.
If I can do something with 50 people that I did with 100 people, my cost is lower. So that is an obvious benefit. But the other true benefits are turnaround time and quality.
Okay.
You've got a process robot that does something as efficiently as a human.
Right.
Even in those scenarios, the process robots work 24/7. A person works 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So the productivity goes up, which really means that the turnaround time for transactions come down.
Got it.
Your service level compliances become better. And the other is quality, because once you've streamlined an automated process, you really operate at 100% quality rate. So quality and turnaround time are two of the biggest benefits. And the third, obviously, is cost. Now let's switch gears and go to the world of human beings.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people have this concept that automation comes in and the human being goes away.
Right.
Now that is not entirely true. So what happens is we've got two concepts. We've got what we call AFTE, or an automated full-time employee. And what an AFTE does is takes an end-to-end process and manages it as a fully automated process.
Sure.
Now opportunities for those are few and far between.
Okay.
Now what really happens is, you produce a widget as a worker, and you do 20 steps in producing a widget. What we found was that these 20 steps can't be automated, but guess what? Step number 9, 10, 11, and 14 and 17 can be automated. So we created this concept called personal robotic assistants. So personal robotic assistants are very, very specialized robots that will do 2, 3, 4 steps. Now you as a worker can actually invoke personal robotic assistants to help you, and now instead of producing 10 widgets, you are now producing 20 widgets.
Got it.
So now people are beginning to see that by invoking personal robotic assistants, they are getting their jobs done better, they're increasing their productivity, they're earning bonuses, and they're actually making more money doing what they were doing and doing a better job of it. So people are seeing the benefit of increased productivity. Companies are seeing the benefit of better quality, reduced time, and I guess a lower cost. So it's a win-win for everybody.
That's great. Now I understand we have a video that talks about some of the details about this. So let's roll that video right now.
Automation is part of our world. We expect it, and we're delighted when it happens. It makes doing everyday things easier. Information technology also has been automated over the years. For example, information is now backed up in the cloud instead of having to transfer files to a thumb drive. But robotic process automation, or RPA, promises to have the biggest impact on business since the internet. RPA, software agents or robots programmed to perform rules-based tasks, improve productivity by increasing the speed and accuracy of business processes. Dell has developed an industry-leading RPA, Automated Full-Time Equivalent, or AFTE. AFTE virtual assistants can perform end-to-end processes in such activities as insurance and healthcare claims processing, but they can also be applied to processes in any industry. And Dell engineers are already at work on the next generation of AFTE that will incorporate cognitive intelligence. Soon, AFTE virtual assistants will be able to reason the next step in a process instead of simply reacting to programmed instructions. And the AFTE Command Center is a real-time dashboard that allows customers to monitor the performance of their robots just as they would their human workers. Here's how it works. Say a healthcare claim needs medical records attached before it can be approved. The AFTE assistant retrieves the claim from his assigned task after his human teammate, Marlene, goes home for the day. The automated assistant sifts through various databases to find the needed documentation, attaches it to the claim, and puts it back in a queue for Marlene. The assistant then moves on to his next task and keeps working until his basket is empty. When Marlene comes in the next morning, she's happy because the claim is complete and she didn't have to search for those records. Marlene gives the claim one last review and stamps it approved. Using AFTE, one customer was able to cut the time it took to perform a task from 4.5 minutes to only 45 seconds. What could AFTE do for your business? Dell's AFTE solution has been recognized by the industry, winning the Outsourcing Institute's Good to Great Innovation Award. If automating your processes could help your enterprise get to market faster, talk to a Dell Services representative today to understand how AFTE can help you achieve your business goals.
All right, so that's a great video. It really gave you a good sense of it. But you know, the obvious questions it raised in my mind is like, okay, sounds great. I'm interested. What do I do?
So, you know, the way we engage with our clients is it's all about process engineering and process re-engineering. So we come and we engage with the clients, we look at their end-to-end business process, we look at what are the objectives of that business process. Once we've got the entire process mapped, you know, the AFT process kicks in. What that really means is we explode a process into process atoms,
right,
which is basically a unit of a task. We look at every atom and try to figure out, is this best done by a person or is this best done by a machine?
Right.
Once we've configured all the atoms together in a man-machine machine, we've got a tool called DBPMS, which is really our workflow tool. It ties it all together in an end-to-end man-machine workflow, which is how we drive automation. So the intent is we work with customers to implement automation. Step one is how do we take a process and automate it? Step 2 is, are there things that you could not do today, which you can do with automation? And those are very, very simple examples. For example, if you are somebody that is collecting money for bills that have to be received, and if somebody short pays you by $10, you figure that the cost of recovering $10 is so high that you write off. So you might have a business rule, anything less than $10 you write off. Guess what? With automation, your cost of collecting those $10 has come down to maybe 55 cents. Now it makes sense. So you've plugged revenue leakage. So not only are we able to implement and automate a process, we are able to expand the scope of processes because now the degree of optimization is much greater.
So if I hire you guys, I say, all right, sounds good, Tanvir, I'm going to bring you guys in. You obviously, you create some code, you create, some rules, business process rules. Is that something that I can just keep using? Do I have to stay engaged? I mean, give me some of the, the details that people may think about.
So don't think of robotics as a tool. It's an art form. And I like to tell customers very often that, if you buy a hammer and a chisel, you might not be able to create Michelangelo's David because it was Michelangelo that created David and not the hammer and a chisel. So it's not a tools issue, it's a skill, it's an art. So what you would really do is, you would engage us to actually run your process. We will take over your process, we will run your process very, very similar to how you run it today. We'll bring in some tools, technologies, improve it. But once we've mastered your process, gradually we will start increasing the component of robotics in the process, and over a period of time, bring in 30, 40, 50, 60% automation. So what would really happen is today you do this process and it costs you $100 to do it per year. Chances are I will come in and say, in the first year, it's going to cost me 100 plus a little bit more because I want to make a little margin on it. But then I bring in 10, 20, 30% automation. So my cost goes from 110 to 90 to 70 to 50. So over a 5-year period, my average cost might be say $65 compared to your 100. So I will get into a contract with you today that I will charge you $65 per year and deliver the same results. So what really I'd like to guarantee to you is the results that you get: better quality, better turnaround time, better compliance to SLAs at a lower cost, and not necessarily sell you the tool, because what I specialize in is using the tool to deliver business results to you. However, if you want to buy the tool, we can sell it to you, but that's not where the true value lies.
All right, fair enough. No, that's good. That's an important distinction, I think, because I'm sure a lot of people think of it, frankly, as it would be more of a tool. Another question, obviously, when we think about this, there is an impact on employees at an organization that you work with. How do you deal with, in the case that you take it over, that's one thing, but if it's a case where you automate a portion of it, obviously a big part of the challenge is going to be essentially retraining that person.
That's correct.
So how does that work? Do you guys do the retraining? Do you work with the existing, your client to do that? How exactly does that?
So it's a mix of both.
Okay.
Now, what we are finding is in the industries that we are in, healthcare on the health insurance side, on the healthcare provider side, life insurance, hospitality, the industries are going through a massive churn. Hotels are changing the way they interact with their guests. They're bringing in mobility. You can check in a hotel using a kiosk. You go to a hospital and you see all sort of devices that get attached to you. You go to a health insurance company and the way they look at your insurance is very, very different. Right. So the industries are going through a very, very dynamic change. Right. What they need is their employees to get retrained. What they need is additional employee bandwidth. Okay. Now, the easiest way to create employee bandwidth is to hire more people. But guess what? Nobody's got the money to hire more people. So on one hand, we are using robotics and automation to free up existing employees. Okay. And hopefully, the bandwidth that is getting created will take care of the dynamic changes that are occurring on those industries. So it calls for process re-engineering, it calls for retraining. So we bring in our consultants. For example, the healthcare industry just moved from ICD 9 to ICD 10. Workloads have increased 10 times, but you can't go and hire 10 times more people. So you need to get the grunt work out of the system, retrain your existing employees, and find a way to do more with less. So that's what robotics does. And to your question, who does that training? So we bring in the expertise. What we really like to do is train the trainers in a customer organizations, because that's the only scalable model. I can't deploy 10,000 trainers, but if I can go to your hospital and train 3 people who can train the 300 others. Got it. So it's basically robotics freeing up bandwidth to do what the industry is demanding employees to do today.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Tanvir. Really appreciate you taking the time for coming out.
A pleasure.
Coming up next, is a hybrid cloud right for your business? That's a big question these days. I'll be hosting and I'll be chatting with Dan Kingsleen, so stick around right after this.